Good evening, it's Kerry Burr, the Human GPS, here on Warrior TV, the voice platform for the mental health warriors. This evening we have an amazing guest, a gentleman called Paul, and he will be with us in just a few moments. Good evening, it's Kerry Burr, the Human GPS, here on Warrior TV, and I'm joined this evening by an amazing guy, Paul. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Paul, you've got a really fascinating story to tell us about your own personal experiences with depression and bipolar.
Yes, I realise now, looking back, because I'm 49 now, and I realise looking back now that bipolar essentially hit me when I was about 9 years old, and be it bipolar or paranoia or OCD or derealisation, I'd basically lived with that all my life and never really knew anything different. And then last Christmas, something amazing started happening, and I actually just started getting better, and I basically suffer very few of those symptoms at all now.
Wow, that is just amazing, absolutely amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit about what it has been like living with bipolar?
I mean, it was me. That was sort of what I was used to. No one ever. I mean, I realise now that some people, specifically my mother, were apparently a bit concerned about me. But that was how, I grew up. That I just thought that's what life was. I distinctly remember once trying to put sugar on my toast in the morning instead of marmalade. But I had a fuzz in my head. I had a fog in my head. That was, first thing in the morning. I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and that was depression.
Yeah.
And it was making me confuse things, and that's really what I've done all my life. If I had a pain in my knee, I'd be convinced for the next 3 hours I was going to lose the lower half of my leg through the paranoia. Or if I got the sun flashed in my eye, I think, right, I'm going blind. That was a paranoia. And I just, for a long time, I never knew. And for a long time, I never even questioned it, because that was how I grew up. That was, what I experienced.
Crikey. So, how I know very little about bipolar. I know a few people that have it, and each one experiences different things. So I am guessing it can be quite different from individual to individual.
As an individual, I experience different things every day, as I'm sure most bipolar sufferers do. Yes, it just comes in phases. Either it's the paranoia or the obsessive compulsive disorder. As I understand it, because I have read up on it quite a lot, and I believe educating myself on it did help. Bipolar was a phrase originally coined early 1990s, because people with manic depression were going to see doctors, and the doctors were saying, well, hang on, because you've also got paranoia, you've also got OCD, you've also got derealization. So it was to join things together. It wasn't that. I'm sure there are a few poor unfortunates who merely suffer, as it were, from manic depression.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were also displaying all these different symptoms. So this is how it was coined originally.
Right. Yeah.
So that's all it is. It's a mix of symptoms, and yes, as I say, for me, I would experience many different sort of personalities in one day. I'm sure many. Well, I have bipolar friends on Facebook and the like, and they're the same.
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on.
I was going to say, it's I suppose a bit like depression can cover such a multitude of different symptoms, can't it? So going back prior to Christmas, how has life been for you? What are the struggles that you've encountered?
So when I was still with manic depression?
Yes.
Right. I would make mistakes at work. I would knock lights off. I would damage bumpers. That was all because there was a fog in my head and I didn't realize what was going on. I've defined myself bipolar as something that tells you there are things in your head that there are not, and it tells you that there are dangers in the outside world that do exist. So hence, I would possibly see a bollard in the truck, and then, for want of a better thing, I would just drive into it because I would kind of just forget it was there.
Okay. So yeah.
It was all minor damage stuff, but it is really annoying and it is quite expensive. So a lot of mistakes were made. A lot of times I didn't want to speak to people. I couldn't speak to people. I've always had jobs. I've always worked, but there were days when I would literally hear my alarm going off and I just literally could not get out of bed because my body would not move. I understand with some people that's quite common. Thankfully for me, it seemed to be quite rare. Thankfully for me, I seem to be one of these people who heard the alarm clock going off and I could just get up.
Wow, yeah.
Now that I'm sane, apparently, I'll quite happily sleep through 13 minutes of a 15-minute alarm. Honestly, that seems to have changed. I seem to have lost that thing when I can the alarm just starts and I'm up. Now it really is a struggle some mornings. I do have this ability apparently to sleep through it.
Bless you. Right, and it's weird, isn't it? I always joke about the fact that I quite happily will hit the snooze button several times before I get up.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different, isn't it? Actually sleeping through the majority of it before you.
I think with possibly with the paranoia, I think it was a very sort of nervous disposition thing.
Yeah. So
the reason I probably used to be able to get up on the cue, straight away was because I was literally just that sort of paranoid about missing the alarm.
Yeah.
I was that worried about sleeping in because I was ill.
Yeah.
Because one particular symptom of high functioning depression is that you want to please people.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that was a lot to do with that. So now, as I say, now I'm sane though. Apparently, I've turned into a bit of a lazy git.
Oh, bless you. Adam's joined us in the comments. He has a question. He's asking, what is life like on the road when dealing with your challenges?
Well, as I said before, I did make mistakes and things got damaged. A lot of time, because it was never diagnosed with me as a child and until very much later, the answer in my day was go to school, go to work.
Yeah,
that was a cure for depression, Yeah. Although my parents, to be fair, didn't know I had it, but so a lot of the time I just carried on autopilot. But yeah, my God, I didn't want to speak to people, which didn't make it easy for the deliveries. Because I just wouldn't answer the phone. Texting is probably one of the best inventions ever because I would do that. But then, of course, they'd just get loads of angry text messages through because I was upset and I was depressed and all the rest of it. So no, I mean, I don't suppose it was easy, but I just, as I say, I was in the army for 4 years and I somehow managed to get through that. So yeah, I suppose it was probably hell on earth, but I just carried on. I think maybe that's a lot to do with my...
Go on, carry on, sorry.
I think a lot of that was to do with the derealization I had as well, because I just didn't realize that certain things were happening and certain circumstances were ongoing.
Okay. So do you
possibly.
think that being in the army has helped?
No, I think being in the army helped me. The army has a certain work ethic,
Mm.
and I'll still always go out and get the job done.
Yeah.
That was what the army taught me. It
Yeah.
didn't help my depression. That was,
Yeah.
because I was 28, 29 when I left. So obviously my depression was still ongoing at that point. It helped me work for a living, the army, because that's what they do. They finish the job.
Yeah, that's it. So let's fast forward then, because you said earlier, or at the beginning, that it was an issue really up until Christmas when it all changed or started to change. So tell us a bit about that, because I'm fascinated with this.
I don't know why it changed then. So I went home for Christmas, and that was suddenly, I was high functioning depression at the time. I knew that. I was about 38 when I had a discussion in a pub with a friend, and I'd said something about what I did at the weekend, and they said something, it does sound like you're a manic depressive, and that was the first clue. And literally from there, it was like a safecracker. It was like the tumblers falling into place. So I'd spent a lot of time just asking why am I paranoid? Why am I depressed? Why? And it got to the point a few years back, I'd start putting music on when I got depressed and stuff like that. So things were picking up because I was stopping myself going into depressions because I recognized the signals and this sort of thing. I don't know why it changed at Christmas. It just that was the turning point. I just suddenly started I felt lighter. I felt better. I wasn't going into depressions anymore. And I've noticed so much in this last year, changing I've even lost, I used to have very light sensitive eyes because I have astigmatism. I have a severe astigmatism, actually. And I used to have light sensitivity, and that's gone.
Wow.
And even the opticians can't explain that one. And I told them, I said, look, I was a manic depressive, I'm getting better now. But they're like, well, we've never seen this before. We don't know how your light sensitivity disappeared, but I know it's to do with losing the depression. It has to be.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Because it's happened this year. So
wow. So these days then, with the changes that have taken place for you since Christmas, how would you describe yourself now? Would you say that you still have symptoms related to bipolar and depression, or are they pretty much a thing of the past now?
Yes and no. I 2% of the time.
Yeah.
I get some mornings I'm checking the truck and I have to go back and check something, and this is a thing I used to do 3, 4, 5 times before I went anywhere. Some mornings I just have to go back and check something. I'm not sure, Other mornings, maybe a bit of paranoia creeps in. Someone's watching me or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but no, 98% of the time now, it is just like, get up, go to work, get the job done. And in the evening, I'm just not sitting there worrying constantly about things with the anxiety, which I used to do.
Yeah.
Oh God, am I going to get up in the morning? Oh God, what if I take this road and I get in a traffic jam and then I get stuck? And then I used to worry about this stuff that just was never ever going to happen to me. Used to worry as soon as I got a phone call from the boss. Oh God, that's it. I'm going to lose my job. Now I get a phone call from the boss and just like, yeah, what do you want? The stuff that just creeps into your mind when you go down to the docks in the morning and you have to be in a certain lane to pick up on a certain number of box to pick up your container. And I used to sit there for, if the crane was a bit delayed, which is quite common because you can spend 3 hours in the docks. If I'd been sat there for more than 10 minutes, I'd be like, I'm in the right lane. I'm on the right number. And I knew I was on the right number. I knew I was in the right lane, but the anxiety creeps in and just makes you doubt all these things within yourself. But now that's just practically just gone. It's practically non-existent.
It's interesting because you're talking about things there that I would say probably 100% of the population actually experience to a degree. We all of us will have things pop into our mind. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Which is where anxiety comes from. It's thinking about things that might happen, but probably won't at some point in the future, but they're not happening right now. So of course our minds, our brains can't deal with that, can they? Because they haven't got 100% of the information there in order to make sense of it. So it kind of throws us into complete turmoil almost. But I'm guessing that for those who do have these challenges, these mental challenges, that things like that are pretty heightened.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it would probably a word is it would totally overwhelm me at sometimes. Yeah. But again, I have this obviously this thing that nothing was ever diagnosed when I was growing up, so I would have just carried on. But there were times, like I say, obviously when the depression got a hold of me, my alarm went off and I literally, my body just wouldn't move because the brain controls the body. And that was probably too much like overload and too much going on at that point. Because that didn't happen very often, like I say, but yeah, it will bring you to tears. I mean, if you're in high functioning depression, you'll just cry for no apparent reason. And that's probably being overwhelmed at that point.
Yeah.
If you just cry for no reason.
Yeah. So when you say about you on the odd occasion that you'd wake up in the morning and you're like, no, I'm not doing this today, and you literally could not get out of bed. Had your body sort of gone into like a temporary paralysis, or was it just simply, you can move around in bed, but it wasn't going to get you out of bed?
Oh no, I was like a brick. That
right.
was it. Nothing was moving.
It's fascinating because having been trained with NLP and for hypnosis as well, obviously I'm working with the unconscious mind, the brain, and there's this amazing exercise that we learn to do, and it's called catalepsy, which essentially is telling the brain, the unconscious mind, that a certain part of your body, an arm, for example, won't move. It literally won't move, So it's almost as if it doesn't belong to you. You have absolutely no control over it. So therefore, it isn't going to move. And it really doesn't move until you tell it that it's okay. So I'm guessing that it's quite similar to that. Obviously, a different process, but
that was I basically on those occasions, and I do remember one in particular, and I could hear my alarm going off, and I was thinking, I've got to get up, and I couldn't move. My whole body I wasn't dreaming the alarm was going off. The alarm was going off. But no, my whole body just wouldn't. That was it. Nothing. Legs wouldn't work. Arms wouldn't work. Nothing.
Okay.
So whether the depression was telling me to do that or not, I don't know. But,
no. It's like Robin Burney's joined us. It's like she said, that the brain is an absolutely fascinating thing, a really, really complex part of us, and is completely responsible for everything that we do. Everything.
Which is, I mean, this is a problem with mental illness, and a problem with that a lot of people don't realize is that, especially, I mean, I used to do so when I was hyperactive. I used to do some wild, crazy, stupid things, and I wouldn't say I never really verged on the side of suicidal as such. Yeah. But I was an incredibly risk taker. I used to do things that I never should have been able to get away with. And I suppose in a way that's, because if that goes wrong, you're probably not going to live through it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things I look back on now and I think I did, and I just thought, you idiot. But it was something in there that wasn't me, that was telling me to do that stuff. You know, I would, because I'd never do that stuff now, but you don't realize. You just don't realize that something else is controlling you.
That's interesting. Really interesting. It's, if we go back a bit, when you finally received the official diagnosis, what was the next step after that? Was there any treatment available for you? Was there any help?
Well, actually, funnily, as I say, I had a chat with a friend in the pub, and she said, this sounds like manic depression. Then I went to see the doctor, and I got diagnosed with all. They never officially diagnosed me with bipolar, but there was derealization, there was OCD, there was paranoia, there was so many symptoms. It was ridiculous to assume that I wasn't bipolar.
Right. Yeah.
So I saw 2 psychiatric nurses, and I saw a psychiatrist, and to be quite honest, they just seemed bored. They didn't seem interested at all. And they basically declared me perfectly normal. Oh yes, yeah. My doctor, my GP, who I always said was a brilliant diagnostician. I mean, she pretty much hit the nail on the head. And then I went to see these psychiatrists, and it was like, no, nothing wrong with you at all. And I was like, this is why I used to run across the road in front of traffic, because there was nothing wrong with me at all.
Yeah. Clearly. Good grief.
This is something I used to do when I was a soldier. And we used to, we had the camp, which was a huge camp, and there was private housing all the way around the back of it. So I used to run around when I used to go for a run. I used to run all the way around the back of these private. It was about 5 miles, which wasn't a big deal when I was 20-something, you know. But the problem was when you came back to the camp, and the camp had its own road that went past the front gate, but there was only a pavement leading to it on the other side of the road. So at some point, you had to cross this road. Yeah. Well, I had my Walkman on, I had the headphones in, and I used to cross this road on a blind corner.
Oh, wow.
To finish my run, you know, because to me, like I say, it didn't seem suicidal. To me, I wanted to see if I wasn't going to get run over.
Right, okay, yeah.
That was a challenge to me. That was a challenge because I thought, well, if I get across the road, then I'm going to live for another day. Yeah. Obviously, which sounds a bit silly, but actually, I probably thought if I get across the road, that means I'm indestructible. But
I'm guessing that it made perfect sense at that time.
Oh God, crystal clear. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Why not do that? So obviously, well, I can't run very far now because I'm nearly 50. But no, I wouldn't really sort of tend to run across a blind corner now.
Oh, no, bless you. So, so coming back, was there any kind of treatment or help available to you at any time?
No, just my own GP, and obviously she was limited with all the sort of professional things they have to adhere to and everything now. She certainly couldn't get involved with me on a one-on-one basis. So I basically, I suppose after I saw the psychiatrist, I was just like, I've got to try and work this out for myself now then.
Really? Wow.
Which I eventually kind of did, I suppose, but, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, Adam's asking, did you accept the diagnosis at first, or did it take you time to adjust?
No. I mean, what my GP said, I can't remember, but I think there was probably a bit of a time delay in between meeting my friend and then seeing my GP. Possibly that was a bit of a struggle for me. I'm not sure, but as I say, once she'd said that, it was like the lock picker, the safe picker locking, you know, picking the lock, the tumblers, just everything. So I started looking back then over my whole life, and obviously once I seen my GP, there was a few more symptoms that were diagnosed, and it just, oh God, that's why I did that, right? That's why I did this. That's why I behaved like that when I was with someone else. You know, everything just started falling into place then. And I just suddenly realised what had been going on.
Yeah. It's as I say, I'm finding this absolutely fascinating because it's not an area that I'm overly familiar with. I know a couple of people that have had the diagnosis, but because our paths don't cross very often, I'm not sort of privy to seeing them when they're okay, for all intents and purposes, okay, and then not when they're not okay. So it's it's kind of, I've got to ask, is it something that you sort of felt compelled to keep hidden from other people, or is it something that you've always been really open with?
What do you mean, before when I was ill, or after I cured myself, sort of?
No, well, whilst you were still experiencing the whole thing.
Oh, well, like I say, I didn't know. I mean, I knew there was something wrong with me. And I used to do very strange things, and I used to be. I mean, it was when I was up and hyper. It was party central. I'd spend all day drinking and this sort of thing when I wasn't at work. But no, I thought that was me. I thought that's what life was. I don't know if I thought everyone else might be like that, but I just thought that's the way I was, and I was just going to carry on. Obviously, now looking back, I realised what I was doing, but it wasn't. I was trying to hide it. I just didn't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. So life is obviously very different for you now. Since Christmas.
I don't like my job very much anymore. Which,
all right.
I thought I used to, but there you go. That's changed a little bit, but. Yes, massively different. Well, I'm one person now. I'm not hundreds of little entities trying to get in there and argue with each other, and
yeah.
I've never known being one person. So
it's a learning experience for you, I guess. Then at the moment, isn't it?
I won't date because I don't think that's fair, because I don't really know who I am exactly. There's still a lot I've got to discover about myself. The amount I've covered in the last year has just been utterly exhausting, but every day has just been like, oh God, that's why that was, and that's why I did that. And, so it's very satisfying to realize where I was going wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized that I can't really blame myself for a lot of the stuff I did in the past, because that wasn't really me.
That's an interesting statement, isn't it? That it wasn't really you. Because I actually wonder if any of us really and truly know who we really are.
I think unless a severe stepping stone would be put in a lot of people's ways, that possibly they're doing quite a lot of pretense.
Yeah.
And maybe not realizing that things are going on that they should. But as I discovered, obviously, even though I wasn't aware of it, it's very easy to get into a rut and just carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this thing hit me when I was 9 or 10 years old. And
So I know you said that you didn't exactly receive any help or treatment. Is there anything available out there for people that have similar conditions?
I mean, I'm now very unsuccessfully, I might add, offering presentations to firms at a cost for the 38 years of my experience. So no one's taken me up on it yet. But that is just something I've thought of in the last month or so, because obviously I do have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But I did an interview with a student director or a student filmmaker or something. I'm not sure how she entitled herself exactly. A couple of months ago, and I'll say the same thing to her to you that I said to her, which is no, there's nothing. There's really, even if you've got a good doctor, as I found out, then you get projected to a psychiatrist, and they're absolutely useless. So
I guess because psychiatrists are the ones who are looked upon as the mental health professionals, aren't they? Excuse me, the mental health experts within the medical profession. It is very, very interesting because Robin did ask a question earlier, which is, do you think that there's better support for children and young adults with depression?
I mean, I don't know how, if you're talking about children of school age, I don't know how the school system works. I don't know if they've got any support within the school. I can't see some of these sort of rougher inner city comprehensives being able to garner the funds to provide much support. Private schools, I don't know whether they might be able to afford a bit more in terms of psychologists or counsellors. But I think for all the spiel the government's putting out about how they're concerned about mental health, I think probably very little is happening. And given that I lived through it for 38 years, this is the first time I've ever heard the government going on about it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I know that well, since March last year, really, it's kind of heightened any kind of adverse mental health in a lot of people, hasn't it? Including some who perhaps didn't really have a problem with their mental health prior to all of this. You know, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I don't want to be sitting here and for people to think that I'm blaming the whole lockdown periods for the decline in mental health, but it's certainly been a factor amongst many, I believe.
Well, it can't have helped, can it?
Absolutely not. No.
Being locked in a house for a year can't have helped, can it?
Oh, exactly. You know, and particularly people who have, you know, that they've lost their jobs or even businesses as a result of it.
Or even houses.
And yeah, exactly.
No, it can't have helped because as human beings, as with most other animals on the planet, okay, technically we're not an animal, but we are a socializing breed. Yes, we can go off and do our own thing for a while, which I think is called working for a living these days. But for decades and centuries, we've met in churches, we've met in public houses, we've met in the street, and we've talked to each other, and we've sort of sussed out what's going on and who feels what about this. So no, being locked in your house with be it whether you've got a wife, 2 kids, whatever, no, for a year, no. That's just going to mess with people's minds.
Oh, definitely. You know, and I don't believe that no matter how devoted two people are to each other and their families, you know, being in each other's company 24/7 is not good. It's not good for anybody. You know, each of us, we need our own space at some point, don't we? We need to have that time. We need to have that. We need to have different connections with different people. We need to see other members of our family. We need to see friends. We need to see work colleagues. We need to just go out and do some shopping on our own and see complete strangers sometimes. I feel that this is a major area. It's a wide area that can be talked about, that needs to be really addressed, because it's mental health covers such a wide spectrum, to be honest.
Well, it's everything, isn't it? It's everyone and everything they do and every different job they do.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, it can start leading down some very bizarre avenues that maybe 90% of people wouldn't even think existed, because it does affect individuals.
It does. It really does. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it will affect our physical health as well. If we're experiencing adverse reactions with our mental health, it will affect our physical health.
I found in particular that bipolar, I'm not quite sure which part of it was, but massively, massively affected my physical health. I mean, the reason I left the army was because I'd broken my ankle. And it was a bad break. It was a hairline fracture. It was a chipped bone. All the ligaments were gone. So it was never going to get better. And when I had the bipolar, my God, sometimes it just used to ache and ache and ache for hours on end. And basically, with a combination of ibuprofen and lager, I could just about get it to go away. And that's basically all. That's something else that's all but almost stopped now.
Yeah.
Occasionally, sometimes now, I get a sharp pain in the bone, which I think is a more sort of accurate reflection of that injury.
Yeah.
And that doesn't last very long, and a couple of ibuprofen, and I forget about it. But bipolar, yes, because it is in the brain, I believe it controls large parts of the body. And just like it tells your mind things that aren't happening, I think it probably tells things in your body that aren't happening as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's so we come back to the it's. I mean, I find the brain, the unconscious mind, is absolutely fascinating. How it works, how it affects what we do. When you consider that it's connected to every single cell throughout our bodies, and there are trillions of cells. I talked about catalepsy earlier when you mentioned about literally being like a brick in your bed, not being able to move, and get out of bed. There's I don't know, not many people may have heard of this guy. A guy called Milton Erickson, many years ago. He was well known throughout, certainly sort of the area that I work in. He was well known for his hypnosis script, if you like. Excuse me. And he apparently contracted polio when he was a child, and it paralyzed him. So he spent an awful long time in a bed, only really being able to move his eyes. And the story goes that he started to study those people that were moving around him. He was studying their every single movement, the tiniest little movement, muscular movement, and he was remembering it. And he actually trained his brain, his unconscious mind, to start sending the messages to the various parts of his body to make those movements. And sure enough, over time, I don't know how long, but sure enough, eventually he was able to come out of that paralysis and again, get out of bed, walk around and function like most other human beings function.
I would say it took me the clear 10 years to from when my friend first said to me when I was 38 to last year when I was 48, and that all the time. I mean, I was reading stuff up on depression and things like that, and I was I was trying to learn about it, and I was trying to control my depressions. So I'd say it took me the 10 years to actually get out of that.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to say these things never happen overnight anyway, do they? But
definitely not. Well, apparently it did in the end, but that was, after 10 years work, I think. So.
Bless you. So Adam's asking another question. what does bipolar look like for those that actually don't understand what it is?
Right, just crazy stuff, with me, I'm very thankful again, although I suspect now, looking back again, I did spend a lot more time depressed than I realized.
Mm.
But at the time, I didn't think I'd spent that much time depressed. But I had a great predilection towards going out drinking. So yes, I suspect most people thought I was absolutely nuts. I also suspect that most people thought that that's what it was like for me all the time.
Okay. Mm.
And it wasn't, because especially towards the end, actually, ironically, I think they say it's always darkest before the dawn, don't they?
Yeah.
And ironically, towards the end, I was very aware then of being in quite serious depressions, high functioning depression and the like, for quite long periods of time. So I think it depends how the manic depressive is behaving. I just think it's either wacky, or the trouble then is when you get to the actual depression stage, but then people don't want to know about that, do they? Because they don't really know what to say.
No.
Because you're like, I'm depressed, or where's such and such? Oh, he's probably depressed. Oh, well, I'll go around and see him next week, because I don't really know what to say then. It becomes a bit, icky, and because they maybe might discover things about themselves, perhaps, but it's those awkward questions,
Yeah. I mean, my own experiences. I did experience depression many years ago, following a nervous breakdown. Like you, I didn't really receive any help. I got to see consultant psychiatrists, and I was assessed when I was told what was wrong with me. And I was told that I would need psychotherapy, hour a week for at least a year, but I was going to have to wait 6 months before I actually started receiving any. And,
right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, depression is a strange one. I got myself back to work, and I'd moved away from one end of the country to the other when it got to about 5 days before I was supposed to go and have my first appointment. So I never did go. But a lot of people do tend, I've found, to use the word depressed, as in, oh, I'm really depressed, or that's really depressing, or, and I'm thinking, are you really depressed? Or is it that you're using that word as a way to describe how you feel, but you're not really actually strictly depressed? Because depression is something different, isn't it? It's something much deeper than just feeling a bit peed off or a bit low.
Depression is a whole other entity. It's I think possibly everyone's got it in the brain. I think, like we all sort of have that medical condition, sepsis, in our body, but with 99% of people, well, 99.9% of people, they never even realize it's there.
Yeah,
I think it's in the brain, but my God, yeah. So that starts creeping in. It's a totally different personality.
yeah.
And I totally agree with you. These people go around saying, "Oh, I'm depressed," and it's like, no, you're not. Your horse lost at the races.
Yes.
Just stop, moaning about it, and don't bet on the same horse again.
That's it. Yeah.
They will mope about it to anyone that can get their attention of for hours on end, won't they? Oh, I'm depressed.
Absolutely.
I'm depressed. You have no idea what depression is, mate.
No, I would go so far as to say that the people who really are experiencing true depression actually tend to not want others to know about it.
I mean, I can only guess at this, but I think, like I say, I think some people did notice that things weren't quite right with me. I might not have talked about it myself.
No.
Probably wouldn't have talked about it by myself. And I actually, yes, I didn't like people knocking on the door sometimes, and I wouldn't answer basically.
Yeah.
So no, I probably wouldn't have. Now, fine, not a problem, because that was a different person or several different people. That wasn't me. So I'll talk about anything anyone wants to hear.
Brilliant. I have. I've got to ask. Have you considered writing a book?
Do you know? I really don't have the mindset for that.
Okay.
My mind's always has, and I suspect always will. And I thought maybe I could have blamed this one on the bipolar, but apparently not. I'm still attracted to moving pictures and films, and and I struggle to read a book, to be honest. So I think I would struggle to write one. I think I would struggle immensely to write one.
Okay. It's interesting because I think each of us has a story to tell. We've all got our own experiences, and our own experiences and choices that we've made kind of lead us to where we are at the moment. And I personally feel that there's a lot that we can all learn from your story. I'm kind of wondering, I'm kind of thinking that it potentially could help others out there that are experiencing similar.
I mean, it's really just, I'm really just getting things together now, obviously. It was only after I'd seen this girl student filmmaker that I thought of the idea, and I put my LinkedIn page up for the presentations on bipolar. So that's literally 2 months old. And as I say, I'm obviously I'm not going to say no to the money if people want to pay to hear that. But the stuff is out there, and I would enjoy enlightening people.
Yeah.
And it would be hard work. I think I'd be probably, after say a 2-hour presentation, I think I'd probably be absolutely exhausted. Because I really would have had to dig into the sort of depths of my mind and remember stuff that probably I didn't want to remember. But yeah, I would enjoy doing that, and that would be fantastic if people would take me up on it.
Amazing, yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, obviously, I just can't afford to do it for free.
Who can?
And that is something I would have done. Ironically, that is something I would have done, especially when I was in high functioning depression. I would have gone and done that, and I would have run around the country all day Saturday, all day Sunday, whatever, doing these presentations for nothing, and it just would have been costing me loads of money. Yeah. But now I realise, obviously, that that's not. You don't have to be running after people. You don't have to try and please people.
No. So if anybody who we'll see this a bit later on or tomorrow or at any time, if they want to have a conversation with you and talk about possibly having you do a presentation, how do they get in contact with you?
Oh, my email's up there, which is basically the easiest.
Excellent.
Because my phone bings every time one goes off. So I don't answer, for personal reasons, I don't answer phone numbers that I don't know.
Of course, yeah.
But like I say, the email bings, and then you can just put your number in there, and I prefer phoning people up, to be honest, rather than having people phone me. So
yeah. Well, I'm not seeing your email address on the screen at the moment, so perhaps after we finish this session, if you wouldn't mind putting your email address in the comments, that'd be absolutely amazing.
All right. Oh, can I see? Oh, actually. Is this where it says chat with the host and other guests?
Hang on a minute.
Oh no, that says private chat. Oh, I've got comments. Right, sorry. Oh, there you go. Oh, look at all these people commenting. I had no idea that was there.
There you go. It's amazing.
Okay.
Paul, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Absolutely fascinating story, and one I'm sure that we could talk about for hours and hours and hours.
About 38 years, I would think.
I was going to say, there's an awful lot, isn't there, to try and sort of cram into about sort of 45 minutes, 50 minutes. It's just, far too much. So I'm hoping that you've enjoyed it this evening, and I'm really hoping that you'll come back again sometime soon and we can talk a bit more about it.
Yeah, of course. This has been great. It's been fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Lovely. Thank you so much, Paul. So just to let you all know, a reminder that tomorrow at 9 p.m, Warrior TV will be hosting the premiere of the Connecting with Spirits with our spiritual warrior, Victoria Tippett. So please do join us then. Once again, Paul, thank you so much for agreeing to join us this evening and talk about an amazing journey. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely fascinated with it. And we'll look forward to having you back with us before too much longer.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Right, that's it for tonight.
All right.
See you soon.